and a nice audience. Any apologies? Is Gary with us? Oh, yeah, Gary, no apologies. There being none, we'll now go straight into the public forum. And who is there?
Jim Jackson.
Jim, welcome.
Very much. Why if I stand up just to sort of show what's going on? So, here you go. So basically, my name is Jim Jackson. We have a property at 69 Mile Road for the last 25 odd years. Our kids have grown up there, our grandchildren have grown up there, and I have a bit of a background in delivering things that are a bit different, okay? So I was responsible for running the largest reclamation ever in New Zealand for its purpose, and the first one Australian Environment Corp. So I sort of tend to look at things. I started a marina in Hartman Bay, or Front Beach actually. I built boat ramps to Wakarama, and all sort of community driven. And I look at this issue now, and I watch Tairua tearing itself apart, which really concerns me. There's people, the A and the B, there's families, that within the family there's dissension. And so I set about trying to find a solution to the problem, okay? So here we are here, and that, I'm sure you're familiar with Tairua. Little ladies on there. Thank you. And
nice to start with containers.
Was there for a bit of yeah. So basically, if you're familiar with Tairua, as you come in the main entrance here, there is a single lane bridge, which NZTA are talking about making a 2-lane bridge, with walkways either side. And I see that as an opportunity. I've had a lot to do with NZTA and this project with Nogi Home. And the lawyer that I used, the guy called David Kirkpatrick, who later became Judge Kirkpatrick, said to me, Jim, you don't go to court, okay? You find something that works for everyone. That you work in the background, because if you go before a judge, he's now a judge by the way, is that you're not necessarily going to get the answer that either party's happy with. So I see this as an opportunity. So in my discussions with people from a wider range of the community, there's 5 ladies involved. I met with them for 2.5 hours hearing their concerns, and I've tried to address those in this presentation. So effectively, there's a lot of land there. New lane bridge, the new toilet block going in. When I start looking at the land there available, there's a huge piece of land that's totally unutilised. And I think we have an opportunity as a community to work together to find a way through it. I won't go through the things on the right-hand side down there, but you all should have copies of this. And effectively, this could be the preeminent arrival point in Tairua, okay? That has all the social amenities sitting there. It's underpasses on the new bridge to connect under 25. We have carving roundabouts at either end of Manaia Road and the intersection of the bridge there. There is a whole range of things. Now, what it requires to make this happen is that there's some swings and slides in there at the moment that have to be probably removed, okay? So that's the current vista as you move into Tairua, single lane bridge, land mass on either side. So what we could actually do is, that could be potentially a new bridge going through there. It needs to be somewhat higher to allow people to have a pedestrian path underneath it. And off to the right, there could be, this is the NZTA proposal, there could be the opportunity to do some reclamation there. And you shouldn't be phased about reclamation. Done for the right reasons, it can be done, okay? NZTA, when they put the new bridge in, will have to do some reclamations for an alternative bridge. And those reclamations they do should be made permanent, okay? And all sorts of opportunities. So I was asked to speak at the Corey, Protect Corey Park Society, against new development. So anyway, over Christmas they had 70 odd people there. They're the immediate neighbours around the area, really concerned about what's going to happen at the Corey Park, the main. So I listened to them. I basically said, well, I think there's a way through this if we actually start working together. And they are the people that are probably immediately affected by it. So then you look here, that's an aerial shot looking back at the tennis court, the current fitness equipment that's there, and the rugby field. And you've obviously got residential property around the peripheral. That's what it's going to look like when you drop it on there. From the information that I've seen, now when I start checking the screenshots that have been circulating, I presume they come from TCDC, someone's actually got all the images back to front, everything's reversed out, it's mirrored, okay? So the proposal there is that a very short distance from the goalpost, there's normally a dead ball zone of 10 metres plus an extra 5. There's going to be tiered seating along there. I presume it's going to be concrete. I suspect it could be a health and safety issue. I have a company that's heavily involved in health and safety. We do a lot of work on New Zealand, Australia. I'd be really concerned about putting a concrete tiered seating directly behind the goalpost, okay? And you're going to finish up with a very narrow skate park and bike area, okay? And I've done some calculations on the material required in the excavation. It's a serious number. And the 450,000 I think is proposed is probably not too much. When I take some details from TCD's comprehensive report regarding the Tairua skate park in May 2020, and I think it makes some interesting readings there. So those are the sites they considered. And I guess the key one there is the Pet Reserve. It's next to a waterfront, so you've got a water aspect, kids and all those things. It's close to town, shops, existing walkway. Has a high degree of surveillance and activities already there that can be located and screened from adjoining residents. By shifting the car park, you're going to get greater lineal distance to the north. Ideally located close to town, playground, toilet, cafes, shade, and seating. All those things exist, okay? And then Corey has nothing like that. I won't go through the rest of them down there, but please read them and you'll start to see that, you know, why is that at the top of the list? Because it's probably the preferred one for everyone, okay? That's an aerial shot looking down at the bridge, and you start to see the amount of green space in here. One of the things I'm told about was Waihitapu, and apparently Honihiki, I'm not an expert, came down the coast and he annihilated a lot of tribes all down the east coast, okay? And there was a real issue just here. However, we put a motorway through it, or SH25, we've built playgrounds on it, we've built toilets, we've built buildings, we've built a township on it, so there's always ways to find problems, to solve problems. Again, we start looking at the car park here, the loop. There's all this space in here that could be used as a car park, give a particular separation from the residential properties, and the skate park should go in this area over here. So really, it's how, when you look at that there, and relocating the skate park, the existing facility there for kids, I'm sure I could get some volunteers to start relocating that equipment if there was a desire to do that, okay? And even the cost, I'm told, is 15 to 20 grand to have a contractor do it, so it's not really a large chunk of money for what could be much better outcome. So new toilets going where there were walkers there, and over Christmas, you probably can't see it here, but a car came around here and drove through that density on that residential property out of control. So really, you know, why would you have a loop car park? You normally have it locked in, so you'll have to go slowly in and out. So I've come up just talking to people, finding ways to do things, and I won't read the other. You should read that blue section there, okay? Now that's from one of your officers, and he's suggesting that you've got a speed ring track, I think, to Kuru, very successful. So looking at it, there's a whole range of issues. So basically, you could have this up and running in a matter of months, okay? Not years. And there's some planning issues, but you change the planning on Tory Park, you change the planning rules here. The noise of these things is significantly less. Auckland Council, Panuku, they have a whole lot of these things, they move around. You people have one. Turu is one, a Great Barrier. Yeah, very successful. And gets around a whole lot of planning, concrete foundation and structural issues. So there, you look at that there, that's the rugby field superimposed on the tennis court, and you start to see it's a very long, narrow structure, which probably is not the best, okay? That's just a quick look at pop-up tracks around New Zealand, and you start to see that there's all sorts of opportunities. Overnight, the company I'm dealing with in Christchurch, who I know personally, they import these things here. So this is a skate ramp. I had costings on that already. So that's just a facility that can be dropped in there. And the next one is the modular pump track. Again, that facility there. So to me, there's an opportunity there. I can tell you now if there's going to be a legal issue if it goes to Corey Park. If it comes here, the money that's potentially going to be spent on legal costs, the parties involved behind here would happily assist with the purchase of these things or installing them. So really that gives you a quick update as to how we can solve a problem, bring a community back together united, and we deliver a great outcome for the children of Tairua and the surrounding areas. And as we come into Tairua, it makes a statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Does anybody have any questions of Jim? There being none, appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jim. And as you're aware, Rob and I visited with you 2 or 3 years back, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, so that was
thank you very much indeed.
The reclamation and things like that. That's won 7 awards now.
We loved your business better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have next, please, John Isdale?
I think I'm far enough away from the cough on you. I'll take this off.
Welcome, Sir John.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to all of you. And of course, I'm using that. If I sit, do you mind if I sit there?
No,
thanks. I'm here to do 3 things today. A thank you, an introduction, and a request. So, as you may know, I've been associated with the Thames-Coromandel for some time, and last year we had a little do at the Thames-Coromandel for me stepping back. Heritage New Zealand have finally, hallelujah, seen the light, and there are now 2 permanent, we haven't got the second one yet, but there are 2 permanent full-time positions at the Thames-Coromandel. And I didn't wish to continue to, I've been part-time for a long time, and I did not wish to go full-time. My health hasn't been good. I'd actually apologise for not coming to one of these meetings for the last few years because my health has been rather indifferent, to put it mildly. Okay, so the thanks. So one of the features of the, we had a little do on the 8th of December, was I was presented with a Community Service Award. And I would like to thank the Thames-Coromandel District Council for my Community Service Award. Thank you very much. It wasn't expected. I also got another award and some other bits and pieces, including some very well thought out books from my employer. So thank you very much for that. I saw it as acknowledging my contribution to heritage, and I look back and most of course, you're never just yourself. And some of them, is one of my big, I saw as wins, included the work of the mayor here of the time. Sorry, it was back a long time before your time, Sandra. But a lot of people cooperate with preserving and promoting the heritage around here. And sorry, it helps the tourism, it helps economically. Okay, so that's the thanks. The introduction is to my replacement. Now, Scott Elliff is, he's been in with Heritage New Zealand off and on, nearly as long as me.
Welcome, Scott.
Sure. And we first met, I believe, down in Dunedin.
Quite possibly, John.
Probably about 2000, somewhere in the 2000s when he was managing Tota Estate. If you're not aware, Tota Estate is where the meat came from, or most of the meat came from, for the first frozen shipment of meat from New Zealand to the United Kingdom. So quite a historic place. He then progressed into tourism.
Yeah, just a brief introduction. Kia ora koutou. Thank you for this opportunity. I've managed 4 sites for Heritage New Zealand, and I'm proud and pleased to take over the reins at the Thames School of Mines. I believe that we have a real opportunity to make a contribution to heritage tourism for Thames. And I look forward with the support of the local community and council in making a difference.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm very hopeful. From my point of view, I feel that Thames-Coromandel has got a bit off track over the last few years. We certainly were progressing very well up until, as I say, and the illnesses that happened weren't just to me. The Thames-Coromandel had one year where there was one person in our staff who didn't have serious health problems. It was horrendous. We got through it, but as I say, it's lovely to see that here in New Zealand is recognising the need for full-time staff and upping the game there, and bringing somebody like Scott that can get it back on track and, as he said, support heritage tourism. Okay, thanks, Scott. The other third thing I'm talking about, and this is partly personal, is parking. Yesterday I went and had a look. I'm sorry I've been so late in bringing parking issues to this forum. Years ago I noticed just outside they changed some angle parking to parallel parking, which of course, as you know, gives you A, less parking spaces, and B, I at that time was a cyclist, makes it a lot more dangerous for cyclists. As my brother will attest, as a lifetime cyclist in Christchurch, car opens a door, the cyclist's got nowhere to go if they're parallel parked. Angle parking, nowadays everybody's got lights. So what I'm looking at, and I presume this is all over, I'm asking, could you review or bring into play a policy to stop getting rid of car park? We're getting less car parking in the immediate areas where people want to park. I went down the main street yesterday. I counted 16 definite places where car parks are no longer usable by cars for one reason or another. And this thing here, 5 that possibly have gone. This works out to about 1 in every 50 metres. Yes, we're getting extra parking, but it doesn't give the advantage, and a lot of our towns have things called verandas. If you can park going under a veranda, you miss 2 things that I start to, especially now I'm getting older, I don't want. I don't really like walking in the pouring rain, and I don't like walking in the blazing sun either. I've already got a bit chopped out of the top of my head, thank you very much. And walking under a nice veranda is always best. Also, if I have to go round and round, now I'm getting older, to find a park, I'm much more likely to hit one of you if you're walking around and just happen to step out. So I would just like to ask that you review or bring in place a policy to stop getting rid of car parks, places where people can park. I would love to see angle parking introduced wherever possible. It makes things a lot safer for cyclists. It gives you more parking space. I don't know whether this is possible, but I am requesting that you consider this. So just to recapitulate, so parking, please have a look at it. Yes, and we're going to need more and more parking. We've just gone through COVID. We're now only getting New Zealand people. When we start to get overseas people back in, and it will happen, we're not going to have enough parking. And then the heritage people that are looking for heritage tourism, where are they going to park? They want to be able to hopefully come to the Thames-Coromandel, among other things, then go and have a coffee. They can't park outside a coffee shop. They may do something else. Okay. And also I'd like to acknowledge that I feel we've got a very good replacement for myself and Scott. And last but not least, to reiterate my thanks for your award. I felt it was very fitting that that same day, though I couldn't have my award given here, you were giving other awards that acknowledged our heritage, Maori and European, and these fit in with the Thames-Coromandel, which, if you don't know, is also a Maori site as well as European. Also, you were acknowledging the Keith Park, who of course is the son of James Park, the second director of the Thames-Coromandel.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you very much, John.
Thanks,
And
John.
your special recognition was well deserved. Thank you very much for all your many years of service and dedication, which really is appreciated. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Madam.
Are there any questions of John? There being none. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I'm now called Gilbert Jones.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. I wish to talk about and really make a final presentation regarding the Coromandel Marine Gateway or the Whole Harbour, Coromandel Whole Harbour Plan. I'll read this out. The Coromandel Marine Farmers representatives were meeting with the TCDC over the Sugarloaf Wharf extensions and the Tacoma Bay improvements. Glenn Leach attended these meetings, and it was determined that a public boat ramp with ample parking should be constructed closer to the Coromandel town and accessed by Furies Creek. The council engaged Cranley Consortium to develop a Coromandel Harbours Facilities Development Strategy. The 2014 strategy identified that by dredging Furies Creek, marine facilities could be constructed. That is, for example, a charter boat facility, public boat ramp and parking, a commercial wharf, and land created for apartments to substantially pay for the amenity. In 2017, TCDC advertised for expressions of interest in a public-private arrangement to dredge Furies Creek to create a marine facility and allow the council to construct an all-tide boat ramp with substantial parking in town. I applied in the name of my company, Peter Street Development Limited, and I was selected as the most likely applicant to succeed. I own 7 acres of partly intertidal land on the south side of the creek and adjoining it. The timing was fortuitous because the Provincial Growth Fund had been announced and it was an ideal project for funding. I geared Peter Street for the development and engaged Urban Solutions as engineers and facilitators for the whole project, and had Jackie Thorby as project manager. Jackie was contracted to TCDC at the same time. Along with the Peter Street investors, this was a very professional team. $93,000 was granted by PDF to prepare an application for partial funding of the project. The marine facility provided, or this marine facility provided for the dredging of Furies Creek to access a dredge basin which facilitated a ferry terminal, charter boat service craft berths, a dry stack, hard stand, a commercial wharf, and roading and parking. 16 strata-type sections were also part of the complex, which was to be short walking distance to town. Peter Street and TCDC jointly applied for a grant of $10 million and a loan of $10 million with special provisions to help fund a $45 million scheme. The application was turned down by the PDU, but the respective politicians told me that money was available, but that the council had to show enthusiasm for the project and also contribute some capital funds and to help with the resource consent costs. The TCDC replied to my request for these PDU requirements. They are experiencing severe costs pressure and facing major stresses in this regard and cannot offer the kind of assistance the PDU requires. Peter Street Developments believed any further approaches to the PDU would be unsuccessful and withdrew from the project. My personal loss on this venture has been $300,000, along with several years of work and enthusiasm and professional input, and I can't pay the last $100,000 until I sell the land. I feel shafted because I replied to the TCDC advertisement in good faith. The TCDC abandoned the Coromandel Marine Gateway, I should say, in favour of the Sugarloaf Wharf, in which the council and CMFA originally applied for $42.5 million. This application was subsequently reduced to 20 million with advice from the PDU and was deemed successful. The Honourable Shane Jones had told the Mayor that there was $50 million available for the Coromandel Marine facilities, but with the $42.5 million for the Sugarloaf and $8.5 million for the Kopu facility, the $50 million was already spoken for, leaving nothing for the whole harbour plan. My $45 million project was never put in front of the councillors for discussion, and this decision and the abandonment of it was made by the Mayor and CEO. The council have supported the extinguishing of the current public amenity called the Sugarloaf Wharf and are promoting the new private company, Tahi Araki Sugarloaf Wharf Limited, in constructing a $20 million wharf and boat ramp by building over the top of the present facility. An alternative plan which provided for the new wharf to be built on the southeast end, which would leave our present wharf and boat ramps in public ownership, was rejected by the directors of the new company. I believe the public have not had an opportunity to present their views on the transfer of the Sugarloaf Wharf and boat ramps to a private company made up of the $20 million loan. So a private company has got a $20 million loan from the Crown, and this can be written off in the future to the local area authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Are there any questions of Gilbert? There being none, thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Just before we move on, I just want to, in reference to the first presentation in regard to Tairua, it's just great to see in the minutes of the Transport, Waikato Regional Council, Waikato Region Transport Committee, that Pepe Bridge is now on their works program. So here it is identified here. And finally, I think this council has got a run on the board at long last, and recognition for the need to have something done in Tairua around the one-way bridges. So fantastic. Can I now have Peter Pickham?
Good morning, everyone. Some of you are, and others are. Just so you know why I'm feeling nervous. I haven't spoken big groups for a while. I own two businesses in the main street of Thames. Used bookshop, and right beside I own an art gallery. So in the 4.5 years I'm here, I've made significant investments, I guess, improved the bookshop and everything else. I'm here to express my concern about the proposed closure of Mary Street. To me, it seems like a pretty daft idea when I think about it. And one of the things, and Greg is going to talk about more of the details about things, so I'm just going to try to relate to you the responses of my customers coming into the shop when I've told them. And I've gone back through when I've talked to them, and all I've done in the beginning of the conversation is just relate what the proposal is. And 100% responses to date have been either it's stupid, or it's daft, or don't they realise how important the street is, access into the main part of the city, main part of the town. Other people have said, oh, if that's the case, I'll just drive straight past Thames and go elsewhere. So my concern, I guess, is where did the idea originate from and from whom, or the group of people, and why was it originally thought as being a good idea, and why has the council decided to actually make this decision? I can understand there are reasons for, but there are a whole lot of things which have happened in the consultative process. I went to the container, to the Vive, after a week had been there, and I listened to the people, council staff talking to people who came in there, and it seemed to me as if it was a done deal already for the consultation. And then when I talked to one of the staff members and expressed that maybe it wasn't a good idea, I didn't get very much of an open response, and I thought, this is obviously a closed deal already. This is not even useful for me to continue this discussion. So I didn't take part in any more of it. And then I didn't hear anything, and the next thing I hear, that it's a done deal. I go, how this happened? Nobody came and talked to me in my shop about it. Nobody even asked about it. Would it affect my business? More importantly so, how does it affect my customers? The number of people who come into my shop who come in and then they say, oh, we're collecting our books and we've just gone here and there, and now we're off to the super to pack and save. That's sort of how people work. And the more I think about it, Thames is a service town. It's not a tourist town, really. We get tourists through here, but people don't travel to Thames to stay. Generally, they might stay a night or 2 nights, but generally they don't spend all their time in the town. So in effect, I think it's really just a service town, and that's how we should look at it. So what does a service town need, especially for an ageing population of multiple? I see a number of white and grey-haired individuals, myself included. And when I listened to the gentleman talking before, parking is of a premium importance in Thames. With this, I think we're taking away 7 car parks, is that right? If I remember right. And all of a sudden it just gets even worse. Also, we don't have the easy drive in and out access between the 2 main shopping hubs in Thames, which is the Goldfields and the heart of Thames itself. So all of a sudden, the main way of travelling in Thames, of shopping, which is by car, it's such a long street, people might stop 2 or 3 times when they go shopping. My understanding, they stop at somewhere down the street, they stop in the heart of town, and then they go to the Goldfields. So, is there a lack of understanding about how Thames actually works as a town? I have the privilege of sitting in, because of where my counter is, I see what's happening on the main street all the time. And I'm just concerned that, do the council actually really understand what they've done?
That's, you're open to questions now?
I'm open to questions, yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you coming in. Are there any questions of Peter? Come on, well, I'll ask one. Peter, are you satisfied with Thames being just a service town? Because I remember having a conversation with you very early in the piece, and one of the things that you pointed out to me, which I thought was very insightful, was the fact one of the beauty things of Thames was the fact that it was this wonderful landscape, if you like, of small shop facades. So it was a small shop town. It wasn't a mall type of town, and that was its uniqueness. And I mean, Grahamstown is just gold, and it's clearly a destination for people when they do come to Thames. Would you not like to see Thames expand its destination areas in the main street rather than just become a service centre?
I get a number of people who come into the shop from out of town and locally lately, and who think that Thames Main Street is most probably one of the best main streets in the country, because it is idiosyncratic. No, well, that's the feedback I get from people, right? I'm not making up, I don't think it is myself, but despite me putting shops there. But at the same time, it is a busy main street. There are a lot of idiosyncratic shops, which some members of council staff come down heavy on some of them, which I think is a bit strange, because They do add variety and attraction to the town. And people love it because individual shop owners own their shops, they work in their shops, they interact with people coming in, you know. And people love the fact that this is a bit like what New Zealand used to be like. You had a main street where you walked down and you could do different things, you could go into different shops and that. So I didn't realise you remembered my comment from years gone by. Sandra's a good customer of mine.
I like the shop, sorry. I've got a conflict of interest here. No, I love your shop and I love what you've done and how you've expanded it and the investment you've made. So I really appreciate you coming in today. I'd love to know what other thoughts, well, I'm not going to ask you them now, but it would be great to know what other thoughts you might have about how the community board are keen to enhance, and I support that, keen to enhance the product that Thames Main Street is and what it has to offer to those people coming into Thames. But we'll leave it there. No other questions?
Yeah, no, because the two things seem incongruous to me. So we've got this great main street that is very quirky, that people like to come to, and that is often very busy. Yesterday it was quite busy. And yet you're saying that there are people who say that if they couldn't drive down one little section of street, they'd bypass town altogether. And those two don't line up to me. Well,
because they don't know what the town's like until they come into it. And that intersection, it's the only roundabout in town.
The roundabout is not going to be closed.
I know, but the access where one of the main places the roundabout goes to, which is the main street, is going to be closed.
The whole of Mary Street isn't being closed.
Yeah, I know, but the access into Holland Street is closed.
Sorry, yeah, no, okay,
You're
right.
Yeah. So, you know, people use that street all the time, you know, and I know, I see that someone, whether it's the council or the NZTA, have had traffic counters up there last week. Most probably in response, I've agreed forward to the figures about how many people use that part of town every day.
Well, and one of the other suggestions has been to turn the street into a one-way street and have all lanes of parking on both sides to increase the parking.
Well,
anyway, it's just, look, there's all sorts of things out there. It's what works best for Thames, and so, yeah, we won't get into a debate about it.
Can I just say one little thing that I think Thames Main Street should do, and I think it's quite simple, is actually change it to a 30 km/h zone, making it a parking and pedestrian friendly street, because you've already got two through roads on either side. You've got Maggie Street, you've got Queen Street, and there are towns in Auckland that have cars driving down it, that if you're walking across the road, you have to stop. If a car's parking or coming out of parking, you have to stop. You know? And sometimes people drive fast down that street during the day, and it's bloody dangerous. You know? And I don't know why, we just don't make it a parking pedestrian friendly and turn it into a 20-30 km zone. How simple is that? Make it friendly for everyone.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors and staff. I'm Greg Hampton. I'm the owner of Carson's Bookshop in Thames. And I also work Monday to Friday for a large landscape company in Auckland. I manage a division of that landscape company that provides full landscape services to the largest retail and commercial entities in Auckland. We manage over 500 sites around Auckland. We manage Goodman, Highbrook, Untitled, Design, Build and Maintain. We manage Sylvia Park, Linmore, Westgate and a number of other entities. So that's my background. I am here today to talk about the Create the Vibe project in town, and I think it's an extremely well-intentioned project. Unfortunately, though, I also believe that it's a deeply flawed project. In fact, the landscape, the creative landscape, proposed creative extra public space is only 200 square metres. And that has been the focus of the consultation and design and decision making, is creating an extra 200 square metres of public space. That is the least significant thing about this project. The most significant thing about this project is the closing of Mary Street. I'm not sure, as you know, I've written a 10-page Lagoima request to council, which I am waiting for a response on. I'm not going to go into all of that today, and I know you're busy. But some basic things. I think the first thing, and I've already mentioned it, is the significance of this project is not 200 square metres of extra public space, which is about the size of a standard residential house. That's what's being created. The significant thing about this project are the unintended effects, which have not been analysed and have not been consulted on, and are at this point in time completely unknown to council and to the public, I believe. So I've requested all of the information to understand how council has come to this point of decision making and how they have consulted on this project. One of the things is, has it been considered whether the effects of this project trigger significance under your significance policy? If so, then you are required to consult in a certain way. 6 guiding principles set out in the Act. Councils must provide anyone who will or may be affected by the decision, or anyone who has an interest in the decision, with reasonable access to relevant information. The Mary Street container did not provide any pros or cons or effects in relation to this project. These people should also be encouraged to express their views to council. 3, people who are invited to present their views to council should be given clear information about the purpose of the consultation and the scope of the decisions being made. 4, people who wish to present their views must be given reasonable opportunity to present them. 5, council should receive these views with an open mind and give them due consideration when making a decision. 6, the council should provide people presenting their views with information relevant to the decisions and the reasons for them. I will await the Lagoima request to see whether that is the case. I will go through the reasons why I think this is so significant. Mary Street acts as the main and most direct vehicle link from State Highway 25, Central Queen Street and Goldfields Mall to Central Collins Street, Thames Hospital, council offices, the Thames Medical Centre and the Central CBD's closest car park, which is Mary Street car park across the way. That Mary Street has significant services all the way up and down it. If you were going to choose one street to close, I can't see that you would choose that one. It is the only intersection on the state highway which takes 15,000 traffic movements a day. It is the only intersection that has a roundabout, which means it provides easy turning into the main street. It is the only roundabout between Kopu and Tauranga. Council responded to my previous requests, one of them being, have you carried out any traffic analysis in relation to this project before making a decision? And the response I got back was that there has been no traffic analysis carried out. So I paid 2 of my staff to sit on the corner of Carson's Workshop, which is directly across the road, and count cars utilising that section of Mary Street on the 29th of December to see how many cars cross that piece of road that is being closed for up to 2 years. Now, it has been well publicised that this is a temporary closure and that the effects will be analysed over those 2 years. I don't consider, as a business owner, with potential effects to my livelihood and my staff's livelihood, I don't consider 2 years to be temporary. Anyway, the traffic count. 2,615 cars crossed the section of Mary Street being proposed to be closed between 9:10 in the morning and 5 o'clock that day, simply during business hours. Those 2,615 cars, if Mary Street is closed, and given that that is peak period, 29th of December, that's as busy as it gets. But that is when businesses in the Thames Main Street make the most money for their year. Carson's Bookshop would earn 25% of its total annual income in December in 1 month. That is our peak time. Those 2,615 cars will be diverted to other intersections in Thames, including state highway intersections that are incredibly difficult to cross in busy times because they do not have roundabouts on those intersections. If we go back to significance, there is significance to business here. There is significance to the entire town of Thames. And there is also significance to the impact on the state highway. If those sort of numbers don't trigger the significance policy, I don't know what does. I will leave it there. I could talk for 30 minutes, not 3 minutes on this subject. I have taken it upon myself to do a very quick consultation of Thames businesses. I sent out one email providing them information about the project. I provided council's information about the project and also what their rights are under the Local Government Act in relation to consultation and decision making. Approximately 20 businesses in the 2 blocks either side of Mary Street have come back to me saying that they oppose the decision to close Mary Street. That's significant. 2 are here today, but I didn't, so there's also Foursquare is here, but I also did not follow up with that. I did not tell them about this meeting today, so it wasn't about arranging a posse. I only speak for myself here today. But I'll leave it at that, and I will await the response to the Lagomia request. I am heartened that I've been informed that Sally Davis, an extremely experienced and highly paid consultant, is providing or putting together the response to my Lagomia. So I'm very pleased that it's being taken seriously.
Thank you, Greg. Are there any questions of Greg? Tony.
Greg, for my own, have you presented what you've presented us today at the Thames Community Board?
I've copied the Thames Community Board into the Lagomia request.
So it's been no, that's fine.
Are there any other questions of Greg? There being none, thank you, Greg.
Can I say one thing in passing? 2 things, sorry, very quickly, and I know I'm taking up a lot of time.
You had quite a bit of time already.
Yeah, I'll make it quick, Your Worship. If I went to my retail clients in Auckland and said, I've got a great idea. We're going to create a 200 square metre landscape in front of your retail premises that is going to take out 9 car parks, which Mary Street proposal will take out 9 car parks. And we're going to place it in the middle of the road so that your main access to your businesses is closed. I'm sure you can imagine the response.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Right, now, do we move seeking the public forum? Do I have a move for the public forum? Thank you, Tony, second Murray. Any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Any items not on the agenda? There being none, any conflicts of interest? There being none, any minutes for confirmation? There being some.
Yes.
Can I just make a point? It's got mentioned here, Alison Hunt's going to be presenting aspect here. 1.3, I think, on the agenda.
No, that's, so we're. Pardon?
Yeah, it was, I was informed that she was going to be speaking.
Oh, it's not on my,
Yeah.
this is a run sheet. This is a run sheet, and so, no, that's been deferred until the Audit and Risk Committee, I think. So, that wasn't part of the original agenda.
Well, that's what I read on, it's no, but it's what we get this morning when we arrived.
This is just a run sheet.
Thank you.
So that's not being spoken to at the moment, so.
No, whatever. So, we've done the conflicts of interest, we're now on the minutes for confirmation. And so, the first.
Is mine emergency management committee on move? I'll second.
Moved, second, Sally, seconded, Robin, any discussion? This is the Emergency Management Committee minutes. There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thames-Coromandel District Council minutes, do I have a mover? Martin, seconder? Do I have a seconder? Robin, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So, we're straight into the 35 as the public conveniences. Any other?
Talking of which, please use my
Pardon? Oh, right.
This makes sense, doesn't it?
Pardon?
I was going to move it.
Okay, you can move it.
Yes, yeah.
Moved Sally, seconded Murray. Any discussion? And first up is Tony.
My question in terms of funding, and I believe it should district funding.
Right. Any other comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to talk to the policy about some of the dates that they put down for upgrading of these toilets. Some have got plus 20 and some have got 2020 to 2029. Does that mean they're in this 10-year plan?
I think, well, my understanding is that this is a policy that was written in 2011 and
Yeah.
we're discarding it because it has no use
Yeah.
and that we have
But are
other.
we taking this information and putting it somewhere else?
Well, the upgrading, all the improvements, ongoing maintenance, ops, etc., it becomes part of the operational side of the activity.
I
And so,
understand that.
I don't think any policy.
It's handled through the commitments rather than a strategy.
Yeah, I just want to know if they plan times for the toilets and moving into another document somewhere else.
Yeah, asset management is.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that some of these dates look quite quirky.
Okay, that's not part of the discussion.
Well, I'm just opening a clarification.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's all moved in as management. They get reviewed every 3 years.
And let's face it, if there's something going on with a public toilet in anyone's area, that can always be brought forward to the community board and to council. So, but yes, so the key question here is whether you think this should be, we should have a draft public convenience strategy, and I would suggest not, but. John, did you have a comment?
Look, the only thing I understand if we're not using it, probably but there were some good points in there about distances between toilets and where they should be located. Bits and pieces. As you know, everybody wants a toilet. Here, there and everywhere. Everybody else got their fair share. This just gives some guidelines as to where they should be placed against any multiple toilets through the district. And I don't know if we can pick that up through the management, through the renewal of toilets and what have you. Just give.
It'll come up when there is demand for budget for it from any part of the
And this
district.
spells out what criteria should be for placing toilets.
Maybe that
Well, I don't think.
But it's not even been adopted so far, has it? It's just a draft strategy.
Yes, Sally, go for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the point is that this is a draft strategy that was never adopted by council.
Yes.
Since that time, asset management plans have been put in place for all of our key assets, and the relevant information from here is now contained within the asset management plan, which is used to manage public toilets and a whole lot of other assets across the district. So we're simply saying this draft strategy is no longer relevant, been superseded by an asset management plan, and so let's get it off the books, because then we don't have to look at it again. We focus on the thing that actually matters, which is the AMP.
Okay, I'll move it. Been moved and seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Nobody else has any questions or comments? So Tony, the comment you raised about it being local district, that's different discussion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Under the asset management, so when it comes up,
Yeah.
my view is they shouldn't district, because
Yeah, get that.
And I think our visibility of the asset management plans and how that feeds into the LTP and things is really important, and I would appreciate more visibility of that, I think, so that we have a better, wider understanding of that
The disability standard being brought into it.
Well, not just the disability standard, that's really important. I would absolutely expect that as business, but our whole asset management plans, and I think we, as a council, we could have more visibility of that.
Yes.
Which is for another day.
Yeah, that's a good thing though. Okay, so move Sally, seconded Murray. There being no further discussions, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carry. Thank you, Sally and Rachel, much appreciated.
Next item is
You got one
else as well, yes.
You're on to the next one. And so, the revoking the Russet Road one, page 59. Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
I'll move that.
Can I just ask a question? It's interesting, where, does this still remain a public road, or will this become a private road? Still a public road. Because there's some cases that when you're maintaining your own, but other people have access to it, then it still remains a public road.
No, that's not entirely true. This is private access, except for that portion that gentleman is asking for some special provision for, because he wants to do have more formal access. The fact is that it's actually private property. There is a paper road in the area, but the topography for that paper road is completely untenable. So there's no way that council would ever put a road in there on the paper road, and the current access for this gentleman is private property. So
it's a funny story, but I had a client charged with doing a wheelie on the access to their properties, and in the end, they all found it was too hard and they dropped the case. So once you start having their own maintenance of the property and everything, the council sort of has to sort, but there's conflicting law. That's what I can say. It's not open and shut.
For Russet Road, you're talking about?
No, not for this one. I'm just saying I had a very similar roading situation for a case in Auckland this year, where someone did a wheelie and a person entitled to be there, and they got prosecuted by the police, and in the end, because it was private, there was an argument either way, and in the end they just said it's all too hard and we'll drop the case.
Okay.
Can I just ask where Russet Road is?
Russet Road is just up near Kuratara.
Yeah.
Just, the Kuratara boat ramp?
Yeah.
It's right opposite there.
You would never see it.
So, where the Kuratara boat ramp is?
Yeah.
By the one-way bridge?
Yeah.
Okay, Russet Road just goes off to the right. You actually miss it. Unless you're really looking for it, you miss it. So, because John and I have both been involved in that, I had a meeting on site with all the neighbours, and honestly told them to whistle Dixie, literally, because it's just ridiculous that we would put in a council road on where that paper road was, which was what they were trying to get us to look at doing. It was just a nonsense. What happened was they not only bought a piece of national land because it was cheap. So I won't go into a whole other story, but, okay, we have a mover and a seconder for this. Oh, moved, John, seconded. Do I have a seconder? Martin. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. All right, thank you very much, Sally and Rachel. And now on to 2.3, page 61. So,
I move the resolution.
you happy, all four? Fine. Luke, Tony, do I have a seconder? Martin?
Oh, no, you said
Any discussion?
yes.
Sally?
Do you want? Number 3, it's direct staff to prepare a report no later than August 2021 in terms of speed and acknowledgement of the significance of this. We're asking for that to come well back so that, April, so that we can get on with doing the next thing. So that's, I want to move change number 3 to April.
Can we actually get some advice about
Yes, and
staff capability and work?
Well, I would have thought, in the scale of things that are happening, this is an extremely important, and staff can be shuffled around. It is top priority.
I agree, this should be moved.
So, do you want to comment now or take Murray's? Okay, Murray, do you want to have your question?
One question, yeah. I know on the decision, paragraphs 31 and 32, the judge also notes that signing the declaration could create a cause for legal obligation on council. Now, we just heard a councillor say this is an extremely important thing for councils. I look at other councils, and there's 125k away from us, with the mayor, and I understand the great majority of councils in New Zealand were the same, sign this declaration without any reference to councils whatsoever.
That's right.
So my concern is, hang on, we're getting told we've got legal obligations. We have some people think this is extremely important. We probably have 50 councils in New Zealand who've signed it, that have not taken it back to their councils. The local government New Zealand said it's a non-binding document, and yet we've got a judge said it could be binding, and there's obviously then, as someone who rang me yesterday was discussing, and I said, we've got to be very careful that we're doing a long-term plan, and yet if we look at this, we may be, through what the judge said, committing the council to financial obligations. Now, I find this probably one of the most big, complex issues I've been on since I've been on council, because the advice is all conflicting around the place, and you can look at it in a simplistic view, or if you dig deeper, I think there's huge ramifications of this, which may be legal obligation, and where we're going, and where's this for other councils in New Zealand?
So I'd like a point of clarification to the CEO. My understanding is this report will not recommend to council. This is a process. Council and the judge has said can make any decision that it wants. So to me, this is a process question to respect the decision that's been made, and though all of those arguments are relevant to have when we come to make the decision.
These are the direction. It's at the direction of the court, regardless of what we think about it. So the key concern here is, do we do we do it by April? Now, this may take some significant work, given that we have to do a report in accordance with the judge's direction. That means it needs to be substantive. So there's time and cost and expertise required in this. So I personally can't, I'm not going to actually make any comment. I'll just leave it to Rob.
Well, again, when the original draft report was written, we had a date of June written as the date we wanted to achieve. And we spoke with the relevant staff, because it's our policy team that would be primarily driving this, but our policy team are also the ones that are heavily involved in the draft consultation, the consultation of the draft long-term plan. So from now until June is a very busy period for those particular policy staff, which is why we decided through the development of the report that we would change that June date to an August date. From my perspective, in terms of wanting to be proactive on this issue, because I do think it's something that we need to tick the box and move on and do the right things in terms of where the council's directives end up being. I'd be amenable to changing that date back to June or before if we can actually deliver that. But it may be that we need to bring in some external resource to achieve that June date. And again, on the great scale of things, don't mind, it's a few $1,000s here and there, but we do know that sometimes we get the accusations of bringing too many consultants in to do our work, that sort of thing. It's an acknowledgement that we do need to probably go externally if we want to bring that forward, because we can't really go external to do the LTP work that the policy team have actually been focused on doing for the last few months. But I want to be proactive as the city in terms of.
But you're going to have to approve budget.
Yes. For me, you were talking about the decision as well as the other thing, which is what this council is actually going to commit to in terms of a climate action plan, which is different to the declaration. And this, to me, is how we're actually going to respond as corporate citizens and as leaders in this community to that challenge. So there's two things on the table, and if we just focus on the declaration and put everything out, well then we're just getting further and further behind. So that's my concern, and I acknowledge the financial implications. However, sometimes the financial implications of not doing anything can be worse.
So, sorry, Robert.
So, Sandra, you and I spoke last night about this, and this morning you gave me.
I was a bit confused actually about what you were after. So when I asked you, you started off with mentioning the declaration, then you talked about the commission.
No, I didn't mention the declaration.
Yeah, well, I thought you had. So.
No, I didn't. I mentioned climate change. They're sort of two strands of the same thing. So this morning you gave me an update about the climate change reduction action plan working group that we formulated in March last year. We've had 3 meetings, had a series of next steps that as of yet we haven't pursued, but you told me this morning that Rob has some news about that. Rob, could you
that's three. So we've got a meeting on the 10th of March, and who is coming to that meeting, and what can we expect at the end of that meeting? Because I understand that this is a meeting to progress the other part of the climate change discussion, I guess. And when we met in March last year, we said that we were going to immediately establish a working group to formulate a greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan for council emissions and allow a CE a budget of $50,000 to proceed. Now, we've had 3 meetings since we've made that resolution. We've got a meeting on the 10th, and I believe that that's going to have somebody at it.
It is. I've brought along Lee Dickey from the Waikato Regional Council, who's going to give you an overview of the Climate Change Commission's draft proposal, which is about to go out for public consultation, and also talk about the Waikato Regional Council's plans. Yep. And I've got 2 energy consultants, Kevin McGrath and Martin Lynch, who are involved across the Waikato in terms of energy reduction, carbon reduction initiatives, and for them to talk about the work that is already going on within this council, because some of it is just part of the BAU process, and also initiatives that that could be decided upon, which follows on from the resolutions at your last meeting, that you asked for experts to be brought in to talk about the detail of the documents that you've got. So there was a GHD report on council's emissions, and there was also the Waikato Region's approach, and so I've got the right technical people there to be able to talk you through all of those things, give you information about what other councils are doing, what's practical in terms of this organisation, and then it will be up to you to decide what your next steps are.
So, yes, I hear that there's staff pressure about being able to get the declaration document to us, the report about the declaration earlier.
Those are different staff, the ones involved
No,
in
absolutely.
greenhouse gas.
So can I be assured that although the discussion about whether to sign the declaration or not is going to take longer than we'd like, because April would be great, if that's not feasible and it's going to cause a lot of staff stress, then we have to take that into account in our decision making. But the other strand is that we as corporate citizens are making good decisions about what we do as a council and an organisation, and that is progressing, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, it is.
Are you looking at offsets at the same time? Well, given that we've got a massive offset with this district having about, 32% conservation estate and forestry covered bush.
That'll be part of the discussion at the workshop on the, I think it's the 10th of March.
But that won't actually affect our corporate emissions.
Tony, then Terry, then Martin.
I was just going to say that I think with the work that we've done to present this meeting on the 10th and what's happened in the Climate Commission, I think will override this other document for me personally. So I don't see it being urgent here. There's nothing that we can do that, under the Resource Management Act, that we don't give consideration to these things. The work that's actually going on in the shoreline management processes, there's a lot of work being done in checks and balances right now. And so for me, and it's been my position all along, this needs central government direction so we are all going down the same path rather than 70 councils all doing their own thing in an ad hoc, piecemeal way. So I'm more encouraged by the work that's actually being done, and a bit of it's been announced now, having more of that on the 10th to say this is where the government's coming from, this is where the regional council's coming from, and then everyone in the Waikato will hopefully follow that same direction. So I don't see the urgency to get this done.
With respect, the government.
Excuse me, Terry, Tony's talking and then it's Terry.
Okay, well, fine.
Terry, your turn.
Yeah, my turn. So we've challenged the judicial review and lost 50k going down the track. So the judge has said to us, in writing here, directs the council to reconsider to determine whether or not to approve the mayor's signing declaration. So we need to give a round table a message to the council whether we want to move this forward. It's priority. It's told us to do it. Let's get on and do it. We look forward to April. Hear the cost of it. We're prepared to spend money on all sorts of things. This is a good thing to spend money on. Let's do it.
I agree.
Martin?
Yes, I had a couple of points. I do think we have to be careful that we're not confusing mitigation and adaptation. Tony just mentioned before about the SMPs. That's adaptation. That's not affecting emissions at all. The other point is around forestry credits. There's just recently been some research done by University of Waikato, which has said that as the temperature warms, the ability of the trees to absorb carbon decreases. So I don't think as a district that we should be relying upon forestry credits, and even though we're neutral at the moment, I don't see. I do think we just have to be careful that we're not putting that out there as a reason not to do anything. And the third thing is that central government, particularly with the draft document that's come out from the Climate Change Commission, central government will impose standards upon local government. There's no, you'd be dreaming if you thought it wasn't going to happen. And if we haven't got an action plan in place, then I think central government will come along and say, right, this is what you have to do. If we have something in place, central government may say, okay, that's fine, but you need to add this, strengthen this, blah, blah, blah. But I think we risk being caught with our trousers down if we haven't got some sort of plan. And I just don't want to wait anymore. I've been, this is 2 years, I think, that we've kicked it down the road. 2 years when we could have had solar panels on our roofs, we could have had electric vehicles in our fleet, and we've done nothing, and it's just really annoying me.
Right, Robin?
Well, I want to go back to what you were saying, Tony, about central government, and we have an opportunity to be a part of a process that's bigger than local government at the moment, because of course the Climate Commission has come out with their draft report and they are asking for submissions about what they've said. So is council going to respond to that as an agency and say, this is what we think of the Climate Commission report and here is our feedback? They're asking for our feedback. Are we prepared to do that? Can we do that?
We've got the expertise done. We can, look, we're right now having a discussion about early timeframes for budgets, just to do the reports for the direction of the judge.
Okay.
And now you're asking for more.
I think this is the very thing I didn't want to happen, is for the declaration to get mixed up with our climate action plan, which is crucial. So to me, we should stick to one of them now, which is decide on number 3 of the resolution about what the date is going to be. And the recommendation from the floor has been April. The chief executive saying June is possible, but it is earlier, but it will require, it will have financial implications, and so I think we should sort that and then go on to the climate stuff.
Would I move an amendment to the bring forward date?
We've got a motion on the table.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, the resolution's been moved and seconded, right?
Yeah, well, we can move an amendment.
So,
You can.
yeah, you can put the motion.
If the original mover doesn't want to change the date by agreement, so that may happen first before amendments required, but it needs to just.
So the question really is, so you want to move that the date be changed from August to?
Well,
April.
Yes. I would suggest that's as mission impossible. However, that's okay. Murray.
Well, sorry, you've got an amendment, so you'll need to put the amendment, would you? You've moved along.
Radio, who's the second?
So the interior movement.
Okay, Terry? Yep. Okay, that's the case. I'll put the amendment from August through to, what was it, April?
end of April.
April, so you're putting it.
April, just April. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion around the amendment? There be none, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Against.
Okay, so you'll just pour whatever money.
Can I get a read on it?
Yeah.
Because I think it's not practical.
No, I don't.
Well, we don't know the financial implications. We haven't heard the resource. That's why I'm saying.
You've already moved it, seconded.
Yes.
Now you're asking for the financial.
No, we know there's financial implications. I believe there's financial implications if we don't. So we will leave it and see how it works.
So now we put that, I trust, and I support this motion, except for the date. So I've got to go through that now. But the strategic issues of climate change and all the other bits and pieces, I presume will have financial and will have effect of other councils in New Zealand of what parties say, what a judge says could be a legally binding document. Because have no fear, this hasn't gone to High Court in my opinion, unless everyone wants other local bodies to be involved in this. So what we're doing is strategic, so I want this to be a very, very strategic report.
I'm free.
I understand what you're saying. So back to the original mover and seconder, this is now April. To the mover, do you still want to move the resolution?
Well, that's the resolution now. The resolution has got to be
defeated the motion.
Okay.
No,
Didn't we just vote?
no, I move the original resolution.
Yeah.
For August.
Yes.
I'm not part of it, it goes to April for the reasons we've spoken about.
So the new.
I'm now imposing a resolution on the basis that we've gone from August
The amendment resolution, which is the same as that one with April, August got passed.
Okay, so, yeah, no, I know that's been.
The full thing.
Oh, the next part. Okay.
Is,
Gets a bit confusing, I think. Sarah, it's Martin.
just a question, I mean, I don't know whether, as councillors, we would normally be involved in looking at what the scope of the report is. But considering that we've changed the date, can we change can staff change the scope so that it is achievable?
The direction of the court.
It has to follow the court.
I understand that, but if as part of that, that report was going to consider a whole lot of potential mitigation measures. No. Okay.
No, and I think that's the importance of the working group getting on with coming up with some options to consider for council moving forward. Yeah.
I think we as council reconsider and determine whether or not to approve the mayor signing, and they've asked us to get on with it, and that's what we're doing, we're getting on with it.
So I'll now put the whole resolution on.
It's already done.
Oh, already done that, okay.
You got to put the resolution with the new amendment,
It's already been done.
Well, I don't think it has.
No,
We only amended the date.
You've only amended the date and the whole resolution.
I now put the whole resolution with an amendment. That's weird.
No, let's proceed.
Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Murray. The reason being that the time restraint is too restricted.
It's three of us tonight.
Well, let's see what can be done, okay?
Thank you, right, okay.
And thank you for the feedback about the work that's going to be done through that committee, because I think that's really crucial. And thanks to Sally and her team for getting on with that and really supportive of that and interested in hearing feedback.
Well, yeah, thank you, Sally. Moving on to page 106, which is licence to occupy 24 Jordan Drive, Waimatara. Do I have a mover?
What's this for, sir?
That's the one.
3.1,
Terry, that's the one
licence
I
to
asked you.
occupy Waimatara, Jordan Drive.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to move that way.
Move, Sherry, do I have a second? Do I have a seconder?
Are you second?
Do I have a seconder?
That's Gary.
Gary had a second.
Right, okay.
Pardon, are you seconding it, Gary?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Right, any discussion?
Yes, I wonder, thanks to Terry, he managed to explain to me where it was as you're going out of Coromandel towards Humana. It's on the right out and it's a little hard to see.
Yes.
But having looked at all the information and discussed with Terry, I'm happy to see that. I wonder if I could just ask you a question. How do you make the decision whether this is going to be public or public excluded? Because this seems to cover information or sort of situations that sometimes are excluded. Who makes the decision? Do you make the decision?
I make the decision using the guidance we've got. In this case, there's no commercial aspect in relation to the council, no costs involved for the council. It's reconciliation of an existing occupation, basically, the road reserve.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, appreciate that. So any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Yes, Gary, thank you, appreciate that. And the next item on the agenda is, do you want a cup of tea before we, thank you, before we all, okay. Cup of tea, everybody. Tea in 15 minutes.